Oh, thank you. Well, hey, welcome to the Equipping Evangelist and this special training series on starting gospel conversations. Now, in our Equipping Evangelist training, we follow the evangelistic example of both Jesus and Paul to learn that doctrinally, gospel conversations can start on common ground that we all share as image bearers of God. And practically, we can break ground by asking heart-level questions that we all commonly consider. And with literally so much common ground as God's creatures, and so many heart-level questions we all commonly consider, quite literally, anything goes for starting gospel conversations, even with total strangers. So to test that truth, I selected, sealed, and sent two of our experienced Equipping Evangelists crazy pictures to serve as what I've called secret conversation starters that they weren't even able to see until they hit the streets and actually opened the envelopes on site. So that's exactly what they did. And what I hope to do right here, right now with you is watch what happened when they opened this same secret conversation starter for the first time. So we're gonna do that first. And after we do, I wanna respond with a few equipping comments and then close by teaching through anything that I might have done a wee bit different as the equipping evangelist. But first, now that this secret conversation starter has been returned to sender, me, I want to open it just for you. Now, as I do, ask yourself, how would I start a gospel conversation using this picture? Okay, so here we go again. Yes. This guy, right? This guy is the topic of many a conversation, and for, well, good and really not good reasons. So the first thing that I suggest is titling the picture something that could help start and steer a gospel conversation. And, well, really, we could call this picture many things, but I'd personally go with two words: evil man. Because as I'm sure you've heard, Adolf Hitler was the leader of Germany's Nazi Party in World War II. His worldview really revolved around two purposes: territorial expansion and racial supremacy, which led to the murder of more than 6 million Jews, along with other victims of the Holocaust. So this guy is an evil man whose life and death gives us lots to talk about. But let's watch what happened when our Equipping Evangelist opened this same envelope for the first time to start a gospel conversation with a total stranger.
All right, what is it? Oh, do you recognize this guy?
Oh, gee.
So do you know who that is?
Yeah, Hitler.
Yes. And so what do you know about Hitler? And
He was in Germany, and he was responsible for killing the Jews. He had no sense of treating people as individuals, but just because they were Jewish, they were no good. And then he wanted to wipe them off the earth.
I wonder, this idea of good and evil, because we all do have a sense of right and wrong, and where do you think that comes from? Is that something that we just made up, or is it something kind of objective?
No, I think it's something that when God made us, it's part of our character, and way back in the Garden of Eden, humans chose evil, and then that became innate in who we are as humans to get gravitated towards evil.
Okay, wonderful. So you're a Christian.
I am.
Let's say you're talking to your atheist friend or coworker, and they say we're a product of evolution. Mm-hmm. Do you think that has implications that is connected to Hitler?
I don't know. Now you're making me think too much for a Friday night. But for me, my relationship with God is personal, and so for me, It's more about how he's been in my life, and that means something to me.
I think Hitler was a product of Darwinism, Nietzsche, survival of the fittest kind of thing. And in that worldview where there is no God, there is no creator, right and wrong is very subjective. And there actually is no meaning other than what you create. And so everybody's meaning is subjective to what they feel. And
Yeah, it's the foundation, so there is a truth, and I believe that it's God's word and God is truth, without trying to put other people down or other perspectives down. But from my own experience, that's what I believe and I've experienced.
Okay, well, so clearly and sadly, this picture really does speak for itself. And to start this particular gospel conversation, Daniel asks actually something interesting. What do you know about Hitler? And I love how he so sincerely listens to this lady's comments, and he doesn't rush the conversation. He lets her sort of say what she wants to say. But it's no surprise that this lady didn't say, well, Hitler was an artist. Though that's true. I don't know if you knew that or not, but Hitler was an artist. But she commented on what made Hitler most famous. He was responsible for killing Jews in Germany. Remember that. So to steer the conversation toward God and toward spiritual things, Daniel says, we all have a sense of right and wrong and good and evil. Where do you believe that came from? That's a great question. Again, it starts to steer the conversation towards our Creator God. Very, very key. Now, this lady confesses herself as a Christian. And years ago, when I used to I started in Gospel Witness. I would high-five someone who'd say they were Christian and keep walking and praise God. But what Daniel does, he sort of switches gears, and he wisely uses this as an opportunity, not just for evangelism, but for discipleship. Okay, but Christians, did you hear what this lady said? I do not know this lady. I do not know this lady's heart. I want to be charitable. But she says, my relationship with God is personal. Well, that's definitely where every relationship with God starts. But then she sort of seems to kind of push back on our God-given responsibility to share our faith with others. But please hear this. Do you know that if you are a professing follower of Jesus Christ, but your faith doesn't become public, you're actually disobeying Christ and his gospel? But that's a conversation for another time. But this is great stuff. Now, what we want to do next, we want to watch what happened when Equipping Evangelist Luke, he did the same thing. He opened that very same envelope as given to him by Daniel for the very first time with a stranger on the street to start a gospel conversation. So let's hear what happened this time.
What do we got here? Oh man, okay. So obviously we have a picture of Adolf Hitler. So Sandos, do you know who that is? Do you know who that is?
This is a Charlie Chaplin.
Pardon me?
Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin.
Not Charlie Chaplin. No.
Oh,
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Their most is are similar.
I know. So it's a bit of a, like, I think he's a pretty jarring figure, right? Like
Yeah.
he's a very obviously controversial figure.
Yeah.
What do you think about him?
I think I don't know. He's a dictator.
Dictator?
Of Germany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Germany. Yeah. Exactly.
He have captured many country. I think
Yeah.
he have very powerful army.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most rememberable thing about him is, I think at the end he died by suicide, and his whole family died together by the suicide. I think,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, would you call him a good person?
I think everybody I don't know. I am not sure about. I think in that time he may be right because there is a certain type of war going in the world, and everybody wants to have more territory in their
More territory?
Yeah, more territory under their influence. So I think in that time it may be right.
Okay.
But yeah.
So do you think gaining territory is a good thing, or do you think it, like, gaining territory was good and maybe now it's not good, or what do you think?
Now it's not.
You
Now
don't
is
think gaining territory like that is
yeah,
good? Like, you
because,
think?
because now we are all developed, and people now the world is moving towards the development, and people want more peace.
Okay.
So I think.
So you think that people should just, like, leave territories alone now, type of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that something like murder, because he had hatred, right, towards
Yeah.
the Jews, so that was already had murder in his heart towards the Jewish people, right? Because
Yeah.
he didn't love them, obviously,
Yeah.
and he was exterminating them,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, do you think that murder is always wrong? Do you think that that's the same? Because you said you don't think you should take territory anymore, but do you think that murder is always wrong?
Yeah, I think murder is always wrong, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why he have such a hate towards Jews, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that we all have anything in common with him, or no?
No, not now.
You don't think so? No,
yeah.
no.
Well, I was going to say that you can't get much further from Adolf Hitler than Charlie Chaplin. Two very different human beings. But regardless, I don't want to take the seriousness away from the topic here. But it's so interesting that Luke's new friend, Sandos, I think his name was, he mentioned many things about Hitler. Did you hear those? I jotted down a few. Dictator, powerful armies. He died by suicide. But unlike the lady Daniel spoke with, he didn't mention anything about what most people would say made Hitler most famous, that being killing Jews in Germany. And so then Luke asks this question. I jotted this down. This is great. To steer the conversation toward more moral and spiritual things. Would you call Hitler a good person? That is a great question. Would you call Hitler a good person? Now, obviously, most people would say that Hitler, he's kind of the poster boy for one of the most wicked, evil people, certainly in modern times and definitely in history. But again, it's interesting how Sandos, he seems to say, I do not want to put words in this young man's mouth. I wasn't there to listen, but he seems to say that Hitler's actions could sort of be justified in that time and place because the world was at war. And then he sort of intimates, but we're trending toward peace right now. One of my favorite gospel preachers is Paul Washer. And Paul Washer says, there's never times of peace in the world. People are just reloading their guns. Isn't that true? But so Luke asks this question to steer the conversation, again, toward objective morality, objective spiritual things. Do you think that murder is always wrong? Well, as a fellow image bearer of God, Sandos says murder is always wrong. Boom, common ground. Common ground, right? And we must find common ground to have those gospel conversations. But again, if you're taking notes, please jot this one down. Don't miss how Luke, he started this conversation on common ground, and then he steered this conversation toward meaning and morality. So, Cory, I mean, what were you thinking when you selected this particular picture as another secret conversation starter? Because again, quite literally, folks, anything goes for starting gospel conversations. So what I want to do for the benefit of those watching is I want to briefly teach through how I'd personally use this particular picture to start and steer a gospel conversation. Now, first, for confident conversational evangelism, folks, I find it very, very helpful to have a simple conversational framework to follow. Framework is so helpful. And my favorite is the 3 big questions. So when you read Paul's evangelism encounter in Acts chapter 17, you'll hear how he starts his gospel conversation on common ground that we all share as creatures of our Creator God. And he intimates 3 big questions. Questions of life and death matters that we all commonly consider. Question 1, where do we come from? Question 2, what's the meaning of life? And question 3, what happens after we die? Now, obviously, as Christians, we need to know and share the truth that Jesus is the answer to the three big questions. Christ is our creator, question 1. Christ is our life, that's question 2. And Christ is our resurrection, that's question 3. But as far as the simple conversational framework I follow, because these three big questions cover the timeline, the temporal timeline of everyone's life, not only do we all commonly consider them, but in the big picture, every picture in life somehow connects with at least one of these three big questions, including any crazy pictures that I sealed and sent to serve as these secret conversation starters. So when I see this picture or any picture, I simply ask myself, to which of the three big questions does it most clearly connect? Now, Hitler is such a hot topic that I could quite literally connect him to any one of the three big questions. But in my own personal evangelism experience, I've found asking others about his meaning of life has been most fruitful. So with that simple framework in mind, here are a few questions I might ask to start a gospel conversation. And our guys did great. But I might say, well, what's the first word that enters your mind when you look at this picture? And then I could say something like, Hitler's meaning of life included murdering more than 6 million Jews. Was his meaning of life wrong? Well, by whose standard is meaning of life right or wrong, good or evil? Are you aware that Hitler didn't believe Jews were human? He's even quoted as saying that Jews can't be human in the sense of being an image of God. So as image bearers of God, do you know what our Creator God says to all of us humans about murder and the meaning of life? And that question could lead to sharing God's law as His ultimate standard of morality, a law that we've all willfully violated, which prepares the heart for hearing God's gospel as the only way to true meaning in life and true peace in death. And again, because gospel conversations can start on common ground that we all share as image bearers of God, and as God's image bearers, we've all been hardwired knowing that finding meaning in murder is wrong and evil. Quite literally, anything goes for starting a gospel conversation. And how about you? How would you start a gospel conversation with this picture? A picture of perhaps the most powerful and notorious dictator of the 20th century. Please share your comments below. And you can also watch full and really fun episodes of Anything Goes with the Cross Current right here on our YouTube channel. In closing, I'm Cory McKenna, the Equipping Evangelist who's equipping evangelists.